Iowa voters speak. Americans in the heartland set the tone for the 2016 presidential election.
A final sprint for every last vote. I'm Jason Calvi in Iowa. I'll bring you on the campaign trail coming up.
Ethical nightmare. Britain approves a controversial gene editing technique. And a slice of Catholic life in the Hawkeye State. We visit a small parish on the eve of the Iowa caucuses. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Monday, February 1st, 2016. Good evening from Washington. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick. A strong turnout is expected as Iowans begin their caucuses this Monday evening. Jason Calvi in Iowa and Lauren Ashburn here in D.C. have our team coverage.
Brian, it is truly the beginning of the political season, although it may not seem like it as we've been covering the candidates for more than a year. But this is the first time an actual ballot will be cast here at EWTN. We will be closely tracking political events from our new studio, and we'll have many robust discussions here until the final vote is cast in November. The determining factor in this race is voter turnout, both in size and new participants. Newer turnout benefits Republican frontrunner Donald Trump, while a smaller, older turnout helps Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, who is trailing Trump. On the Democratic side, it's the same story. Hillary Clinton benefits from voters who've caucused in the past, and the new turnout could help Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who is a close second. We've seen a steady increase in turnout since 2000, when 85,000 voters came to cast ballots. The number jumped to 118,000 in 2008 and to 121,000 in 2012. This time, the magic number is expected to be about 135,000. Capitol Hill reporter Jason Calvi is in Iowa, crisscrossing the state as the candidates make their last pleas for votes. What's the mood with both candidates and voters, Jason?
Well, Lauren, it sure is a horse race here in Iowa. The latest Des Moines Register poll has Trump ahead of Cruz. And on the Democratic side, it's neck and neck between Sanders and Clinton. Now, some of the voters here in Iowa are probably looking forward to Tuesday when this is all over. $200 million in campaign ads and hundreds of campaign stops, all leading to tonight. This is it, Iowa caucus night. A mad dash to the finish line in Iowa.
God bless you. Take care.
For all the candidates.
Taking so many pictures, my lips have cracked.
Abortion is front and center on the minds and lips of GOP candidates.
We need to ask, don't tell me you're pro-life, show me.
As president, I will be a vocal, passionate, and unapologetic defender of my deeply held belief that all human life is worthy of the protection of our laws.
Governor Jeb Bush spoke to me about the life issues. Abortion's been so pivotal on this campaign trail.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Is this just campaign rhetoric?
I think there's a growing number of people that see that that babies in the womb of their mother is a living creature, a gift from God. It's not a fetus. You can't talk about it that way anymore when you see a sonogram.
Catholic Congressman Steve King tells me why he's backing Cruz.
Little Sisters of the Poor, they'll be off the hook first day under President Ted Cruz.
Donald Trump has been campaigning with evangelical leader Jerry Falwell Jr. In 2012, evangelicals made up about 60% of GOP caucus goers.
I am angry. I'm really angry.
Democrats Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders are focusing on other issues.
I will not send American combat troops to either Syria or Iraq. That is off the table.
What is feeling the burn mean?
I just getting excited about the changes that he wants to make and things that he wants to do for us young people.
And every vote really does count here in Iowa. Just ask Rick Santorum. He won the 2012 Iowa caucuses by about 30 votes. Lauren?
How are the votes going to be tabulated this year?
Well, there's actually a change because what happened in 2012 was Romney was declared the winner the night of the caucuses. Then a couple weeks later, it was actually decided, no, it's actually Santorum. So this year, Microsoft is partnering with both parties to create apps for both parties that will be used in precincts across the country, or across the state here in Iowa. Lauren?
Now, as far as the Catholic candidates, 4 of the Republican candidates are Catholic, yet it doesn't seem like there's really a Catholic bloc that votes.
Lauren, I did speak to my professor about this here in Iowa, my former professor, and he says that Catholics here in Iowa generally vote just like the rest of the residents of the state. But the Des Moines Register poll, the recent one, says that 6 out of 10 GOP Republican caucus goers call themselves deeply religious, and you see how they helped Santorum win and also Huckabee in previous caucuses.
In 2014, I was looking at a study from the Pew Forum on religion in public life, and it looks like just 32% of Catholics believe churches should endorse religious leaders. Have you heard of endorsements while you're there?
When I was at Mass on Sunday, actually, Lauren, and stay tuned because I've got a story about the church I visited. Great group of people I met there. But the priest at the Mass there said, no, the church does not endorse any candidates, and he made sure to say that during his homily. But Cardinal of New York, Cardinal Dolan, actually had some critical words about Trump's language on immigration. But other than that, of course, the church doesn't endorse any candidates. All
right, Jason Calvi from Iowa. We'll check back in with you later. And joining me now in the studio is Genevieve Wood. She's a former RNC spokeswoman and now leading the Voice for Heritage Foundation, senior fellow in communications, contributor to the Daily Signal. What else has she done? Marjorie Dannenfelser is also here. She's the president of the Susan B. Anthony List. That's a political organization that seeks to advance pro-life lawmakers in politics. Welcome, women, ladies. Thanks for joining us. Genevieve, you've been to this rodeo many times. What do you think is going to make this year different than the other years?
Well, I think clearly the candidacy of Donald Trump is showing that it's a different type of political year. Now, on both sides of the aisle, you're seeing people just come out that are really disengaged from Washington. But I think what's interesting on the Republican side is in the past, you've had one or two candidates who kind of split up maybe the evangelical, the Christian pro-life vote. And this time around, you have several candidates. I mean, a lot of those folks like Ben Carson. A lot of those people like Ted Cruz. But some of them also like Donald Trump. A lot of the evangelical leaders in Iowa, some of them have lined up with Trump. So I just think that there's a bigger mix than there has been in years past.
And more. There are a lot more of them. Marjorie, abortion is an issue that you focus your day, night, morning, sleeping hours, waking hours on. And I'm wondering, you were one of 10 women who signed an open letter saying that Iowa caucus goers should not vote for Trump. How do you think the abortion issue is being treated?
Well, I think that Genevieve is absolutely right. This year is very different in several regards, but one is that it is a complete script flip from 2012, where there were candidates on the Republican stage that were pro-life, but when it came to the general election and when it came to moving into the issue, they weren't. They were afraid the issue would come up, they weren't prepared, and they did a pretty poor job. This year, we are completely on offense on this issue. The issues that we discuss are very popular, common ground issues. Everyone on that stage is fighting to be the most pro-life. Right. And in that regard, Donald Trump is the weakest, and I think that we will see that playing out in Iowa.
Genevieve, Donald Trump is polarizing. There's no question about it. But do you see him the party nominee? And if he is, will people get behind him?
Well, I think we're going to learn a lot tonight in Iowa.
Well, right,
we'll learn a lot. But I mean, look, he could come in first or second and still be in this thing. And I think that's true also of some others that are in the race. But I think if he does turn out to be the candidate, I think what pro-life folks should ask themselves is he may not be with us as strong as some of the others, but we know where Hillary Clinton is. We know where Bernie Sanders is. That's pretty clear. So I think, we're not to the point of having to make that decision yet.
Thank you so much, Genevieve Wood, former RNC spokesperson, Marjorie Dannenfelser from the Susan B. Anthony List, and we will be back later in the broadcast with more politics stories.
Meanwhile, other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. Great Britain approves a controversial gene editing technique today. As Catherine Zeltner reports tonight, some doctors and Catholic ethicists are very concerned.
British scientists get the green light today to edit the genes of unborn babies for research. They say it could lead to treatments for HIV or inherited diseases like sickle cell disease.
Gene editing works like a cut and paste technique. It scans DNA, finds a faulty gene, then cuts it and replaces it with a healthy copy.
Some British doctors call the approved research unnecessary.
It's being justified on the basis that it will help prevent miscarriages and stop IVF failures. But the genes that these scientists plan to look at, there's no evidence to show that any of them have anything to do with causing IVF failure or miscarriage in the first place.
University of Notre Dame professor Carter Sneed says gene editing destroys living embryos.
What we're confronted with this morning is a very basic kind of injustice. The same injustice that we see in abortion. We're killing newly conceived human beings for the sake of speculative scientific research.
Medical experts share similar concerns.
Even secular ethicists have concerns that if something goes wrong, then it affects generations afterwards, because it just doesn't affect the individual, but it affects the germline and can be passed down.
Critics also say gene editing could lead to designer babies, where parents seek taller, stronger, and smarter children. Catherine Saltner, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Catherine. And 2 Virginia Tech students appear in court in connection with the death of a 13-year-old girl. 18-year-old David Eisenhower is charged with murder and abduction. 19-year-old Natalie Keepers is charged with improper disposal of a body. They were arrested after 13-year-old Nicole Lovell's body was found near the Virginia-North Carolina state line. Police say Eisenhower and Lovell knew each other, but they are not discussing a possible motive. Boko Haram is accused of more atrocities, killing at least 86 people, including children. The Islamic extremists reportedly firebombed family huts in Nigeria. A survivor who hid in a tree says he heard the screams of children burning to death. The president of Cuba visits France. Raul Castro trying to expand Cuba's economy. Except for a brief meeting with Pope Francis at the Vatican last year, this is Castro's first trip to Europe as the president of Cuba. Tens of thousands rally Saturday in Rome's Circus Maximus. They oppose legislation in Italy that would permit civil unions for same-sex couples, granting them legal recognition as families. We have more from Mary Shovlin in Rome.
Saturday's crowd was made up of families. This was not something organized by the church, though there were some priests in the crowd. Prime Minister Matteo Renzi's coalition government intends to legalize same-sex civil unions and permit homosexuals to adopt the biological children of their partners. The European Court of Human Rights is also putting pressure on Italy to act. One of the event organizers, Simone Pilon, says he hopes the message from this ancient Roman battleground will reach the ears of Italian lawmakers.
They are very worried, they are very concerned about this event. They are waiting, because if there will be 1 million people, is a problem, a big problem. If there will be 2 million people, it's a very big problem. And all the eyes of the world are pointed on this square.
The Vatican did not voice support for Saturday's event, but just a week prior, Pope Francis reiterated to the Vatican Supreme Court that marriage was between a man and a woman, saying there can be no confusion between the family desired by God and any other type of union. Polls show the majority of Italians are in favor of civil unions, but not of granting those couples adoption rights. The crowds here hope that Italy takes the lead in Europe to defend the family.
We hope that this event, this Family Day, could help all countries, all people who want to defend marriage.
From Rome, Mary Shovlin, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Mary. A major change at one of Israel's holiest sites. Orthodox Jews have controlled access to the Western Wall, but now Israel's cabinet approves more liberal Jewish prayer. Israel will build a new entrance to the wall for women and non-Orthodox Jews to offer their prayers. Coming up, infected mosquitoes spark an international emergency. Health leaders try to stop the spread of the Zika virus. And top secret emails. Hillary Clinton comes under fire as some accuse her of a serious security breach.
Per l'umiltà e l'umiliazione.
Pope Francis encouraging us to be humble. He says we often deny criticism instead of bearing it. During this morning's Santa Marta Mass homily, the Pope said there's no humility without humiliation. That's hard to swallow. Thanks for joining us this Monday evening. I'm Brian Patrick. The World Health Organization declares the spread of Zika an international emergency. Experts are trying to figure out how to stop this mosquito-borne virus. Wyatt Goolsby is here with more tonight.
Yeah, Brian, the World Health Organization is holding a crisis meeting in Geneva. The fear is that there is still a lot they don't know about the virus.
The World Health Organization didn't hold back Monday, saying the Zika virus is a global health emergency. That means the threat is serious enough that international efforts to fight the outbreak should be ramped up. Carried by mosquitoes, the disease has been spreading quickly through the Americas. The WHO warns there could be as many as 4 million new infections this year. There is no treatment for it. The WHO's Deputy Director General says the work continues to create a vaccine.
So part of our job, just like on Ebola, is getting the international community together, getting consensus, picking out what are the best possible candidates, getting the money behind that, the trial designs, and moving those forward.
The Zika virus was first discovered almost 70 years ago in Uganda, but in recent years it spread to Latin America. Today, more than 20 countries are struggling with an active Zika outbreak. Most people who get the virus don't feel sick, only having mild symptoms like rashes or joint pains. But there are major worries about the dangers pregnant women and their babies face. Some have noted a link between Zika's arrival in Brazil and a surge in the number of babies born with serious birth defects, including abnormally small heads.
It is not very often the World Health Organization declares an international emergency. The last 2 times were 2009 with the H1N1 swine flu outbreak and in 2014 with Ebola. Brian?
Wyatt, are there cases reported in the United States?
Yes, at this point there are 32 cases in 12 states, but it's important to note that those aren't spreading locally in the United States. So they're coming in from travelers who have gone to those countries with the outbreak.
Thank you, Wyatt Goolsby. And President Obama will ask Congress for $755 million for cancer research in next year's budget. That would bring the total price tag for Vice President Joe Biden's cancer initiative to $1 billion. The president will release his final budget proposal next Tuesday. The White House wants to fund new programs at the National Institutes of Health and the Food and Drug Administration. Back now to Lauren Ashburn for more on the race for the White House.
Ryan, there is a late-inning curveball that could thwart Hillary Clinton's chance at a win tonight. All weekend she's been on the defensive, and as we reported Friday, the State Department says some of the emails on her private server were top secret. Clinton says the classification was made after she saw the emails.
I take classified information seriously. I did not send or receive any material marked classified, and I want all of these released, and this is a dispute about retroactive classification.
Republicans believe it's a major security breach. Former Vice President Dick Cheney says Clinton never explained why she used a private email server in the first place.
I think there's a very serious problem here, and it does raise questions about, I think, her suitability to be Commander-in-Chief.
It's a little bit like what the Republicans and others have tried to do with respect to Benghazi. Just a lot of innuendo, a lot of attacks.
Clinton's Democratic opponent is staying away from the issue, but many Republican presidential candidates are outraged. Sarah Westwood is an investigative reporter at the Washington Examiner, and this controversy continues to plague Hillary Clinton. Now, what makes this latest revelation worse for her politically?
This is the first time the State Department has sort of stepped away from her and aligned itself with the rest of the federal government in saying there was definitely top secret information within these emails, and a lot of these messages could have been considered classified at the time they were sent.
But she's saying that doesn't matter. We just heard her say she broke no laws. The emails were not marked classified and they were sent to her, not written by her. But what about the non-disclosure agreement that she had to sign before becoming Secretary of State?
So we have copies of this non-disclosure agreement with her signature on it, acknowledging that information is considered classified, whether it is marked as such or not. There's been intelligence officials and lawmakers across the board who have agreed that information is considered classified, and it doesn't matter whether it has a big red stamp at the top or whether it doesn't.
Or by whom it's sent, correct? Right. Now, also in this interview, she brought up Benghazi when talking about this controversy. Why would she do that?
She tries to conflate Benghazi and the emails oftentimes because the Benghazi investigation in Congress has been so highly politicized. But these are two separate inquiries. This inquiry from the FBI is being handled by the Obama administration's Justice Department, not a group of Republicans. And so, you know, she's trying to muddy the waters for voters.
Right. All right. Sarah Westwood, an investigative reporter at the Washington Examiner. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And for all the candidates, tonight is a game changer. We will be back tomorrow with results and reaction, but we will end our political coverage with a look inside one rural hamlet. Jason Calvi reports on how a group of faithful Catholics has been handling the Iowa madness.
Welcome to Immaculate Conception Parish in the tiny farm town of St. Mary's, Iowa. Population 127, where the motto on the welcome sign says it all. But when it comes to their choice for president, their views are quite different.
One of the readings today, it talked about how I knew you when you were in my womb, before you were in the womb. And so I believe in life beginning at conception, and I will not vote otherwise.
It's not uncommon for parishioners here to have met several presidential candidates. This year, White House hopefuls have made 1,500 stops in a state of 3 million people.
I've met Huckabee, Carly.
I remember George McGovern.
Okay, tell us who you met over the years. Who have you met?
Well, I met Jimmy Carter and I met Bill Clinton.
Unlike the Democratic candidates, this Democrat is pro-life.
You know what's most important? Those who are against abortion.
For members of this religious community, there are several issues driving their vote tonight.
What kind of issues are most important to you?
The economy is what I hope we get it back on track. It should take care of everything.
Balance the budget. Nobody talks about it, and that's my thing. You got to balance the budget.
The economy, war. I just think we get a whole lot further with diplomacy than we do going to war.
And their caucusing and these rural Iowa roads can lead all the way to the White House.
Up next, Catholic schools face a changing dynamic, adjusting to a growing number of non-Catholic students. And a modest Popemobile sells at a premium price in Philadelphia. Pope Francis marking the end of January, a month dedicated to peace, releasing balloons. Past popes released doves. Francis changed that tradition 2 years ago. Thanks for joining us on this Monday evening. I'm Brian Patrick, and we're celebrating Catholic schools this week. Patrick Riley is president of the Cardinal Newman Society. Dr. Thomas Burnford, the interim president of the National Catholic Education Association. Patrick, the Cardinal Newman Society celebrates the Catholicity of Catholic schools. What do you look for?
Well, we try to recognize schools that have a very strong Catholic identity. So we're looking for schools that form students both spiritually and academically. Catholic schools are intended as an instrument of evangelization. That is part of their mission, is part of the mission of the church. And so every Catholic school ought to be making its Catholic identity very clear. It ought to be witnessed by the teachers. It ought to be evident in the classroom.
And Tom, how can schools strengthen that Catholic identity?
I think formation, providing great formation for teachers is an essential element, providing them deepening knowledge in the faith, opportunities to pray together, and also helping them use a great, solid curriculum and also a religion assessment that's based upon that curriculum so they can know and assess the teaching of the faith and their effectiveness.
As cradle Catholics, many of us benefited from Catholic schools, but especially in inner cities, there are a lot of non-Catholics who attend Catholic schools. How can this be an evangelization opportunity?
Well, as I said, Catholic schools are an instrument of evangelization, and so having non-Catholics in the school is simply an opportunity for the school to do exactly what it does, and that is to teach and witness to the faith.
I think it's a beautiful opportunity. We have to ask the question, in some sense, for whom does the church belong? Does it belong for the people who are in it, or does it belong for the people who are not yet in it?
And certainly tuition at Catholic schools can be pretty steep. How can we make that more affordable for everyone?
I know a huge amount of work is being done successfully around the country with donors and philanthropists to provide tuition assistance, which is a great way to support Catholic education. But we also have to look at the issues surrounding parental choice. We have to look at the fundamental structures of how tax dollars for education don't always follow the student, and in many states they don't. And we have to look at the parental choice issues and support those legislations that would help families choose a school that's best for their child.
An important point. Dr. Thomas Burnford, Patrick Riley, thank you both for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Well, millions attend this weekend's closing of the Eucharistic Congress in the Philippines. The week-long celebration attracted clergy and laity from around the world to the city of Cebu. It ended with a 5K Eucharistic procession of nearly 2 million people. 5,000 children received their first Holy Communion. Pope Francis sent a video message reflected on the deep roots of the faith in the Philippines. The next Eucharistic Congress will be in Budapest, Hungary in 2020. And a dealer pays $82,000 for one of the Fiats that Pope Francis used during his trip to the U.S. The Archdiocese of Philadelphia benefits from the sale and will fund local charities and special education. Another Fiat the Pope used remains on display at the Philadelphia Auto Show. Until tomorrow, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, watch again on our YouTube page. For the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. Good night. God bless you.